Perhaps you have a horse that's reluctant to move forwards in the arena, or doesn't want to leave its mates when you go out on a ride, or perhaps refuses to take another step when you are out on trail. Well, this podcast is for you. Keep listening as Mark gives his advice on how to get past these tricky bits. Hello, welcome to Mark Langley's Horsemanship Podcast, a podcast helping people to understand their horses better to provide positive training solutions for a happier horse world for all. I'm Jenny Langley.
And I'm Mark Langley.
Joke lives in the Netherlands and has a Connemara pony who's now about 6.5 years old, who he originally bought for his daughter. He's having a few problems with this little pony who is now not really wanting to move in the arena. He's a little all-rounder and he can jump very well and likes to go out on trails. Going away from the stables, he needs a little bit of a push, but he will go. But in the arena, he will not go. He starts to lean against the fence and will kick to your legs. And if you use a whip or spurs, he gets more defensive and starts to buck. People are telling him that he needs to show him who is boss. But Yoke would like to work him in a way where he doesn't have to go to such extreme measures. He doesn't see why he has to get spanked just because he's not doing what we're asking him to do. He knows he understands the legs and voice cues because out on trail, he's very responsive. It's just that he has an opinion. People are telling him that he is dominant. He's found that leading isn't a problem. If he comes in contact with other horses, he can be very friendly, but he can be quite pushy and playful. He needs a very firm, stable horse to get him to step back. He seems to be one of those horses that's constantly testing boundaries. As Yoke sees it, he has a very big bubble around him, but he's pushing and testing that bubble on everyone else all the time. So Yoke is wondering, have you got any tips on how he can best motivate and handle this pony?
Oh, there's a lot of tips with him by the sounds of it, like from groundwork to riding. Sounds like he's got strong thoughts, and, you know, I'll go into that in a second. But the first thing, just the bubble, the bit about the bubble at the end is, you know, we put ourselves on horses all the time, and then they monkey see, monkey do, then they put themselves on us. So bubble awareness is really important. So I'd be walking around on a horse like him, maybe a 3 metre distance between him and me, and I would make sure he knows how to keep that 3 metres and not come any closer, and be very aware of my bubble for a while until he's sort of soft and understands how to sort of move away from it too. Like, so what I mean is, like, if I'm walking somewhere, he can step back to give me space. Now, this doesn't mean I just run at him and chase him all the time. It's just I might carry a flag, or I might sort of shake the flag and get him to step away from a flag a bit, just step back off it, not off to the side. And then when he comes a little closer and he sort of says he wants to come into my space, I might shake the flag and say, no, step back. So he learns to step back and keep that 3 metre distance. And then everyone that handles him for a little while has to know that, you know, just wait and just, you know, softly stand there. And how does he know how to stand quietly? Well, the rope is not moving. And then the next thing you do is, when you do want him to move, you lead him with the rope and say, lead with the rope, stop with the rope, lead with the rope, stop with the rope. So instead of being personal about, me versus you and our personal space, it becomes the rope's telling you to move. The rope's not. Don't look at me all the time. Don't sort of wonder what I'm wanting you to do. Just listen to the rope. And that's just in his groundwork leading skills. Just be patient, stay with the rope, stand at a distance, and don't be constantly in my space. When you go into his space, then you have to be respectful of his space and just let him sniff you and go in softly. So he learns that you go in softly to him, and then, you know, like I've answered podcast questions where I've asked someone to walk up fast and touch and go, but that's for frightened horses that are really fearful of energy and they've been taught to run away from energy. But with a horse like him that doesn't understand body language, we can be a bit respectful and say, oh, well, I'm going to respect your space and go in softly and not just barge in and plait your mane and, you know, touch you when you're looking somewhere else. Make sure he's engaging with you when you go and touch him. Make sure there's a communication in there that's kind of that you're both, you know, on the same page. Everything you do in your leading, did he let go of a thought, or is he still hanging on to a thought? All your groundwork, you know, I could go through 1,000 things, but can he let go of thoughts? Like if you pick up on a rope and if he's looking over the fence, does he let go of that thought, or does he just keep looking over there? And do you have to firm up enough to say, let go of that thought? Okay, so basically that rein, that rope that's in your hand when you lead him becomes the rein when you ride him. So out on trail, the reason he's going forward to the legs is he's going somewhere, he's thinking somewhere, he's already got a forward thought. You're just helping him go faster towards that thought. When he's at home in the yards, his thoughts are at the mates in the paddock or not thinking forward. So all you're kicking and pushing and sticking and whatever's doing is just getting to think on the pressure, focus on the pressure and argue with the pressure. Whereas when he's already travelling forward, it's helping him go faster towards his thoughts. So basically he's not letting go of a thought. He's thinking somewhere else and he doesn't want to let go of that. So people wonder why I do one rein starts all the time. What's the most powerful tool to get a horse to let go of a thought? Is the reins, leading. So I would do a lot of steering in the arena till he has perpetual motion. If he stops, I just pick up a rein, pull, lift, rock, wait, hold until eventually he follows that rein around. And then every time he stops, I do it again until he's going everywhere in the arena. That's one way to get his feet free and get him to mobile and get him forward, is just good steering. They haven't touched him with your legs. If you haven't touched him with your legs, you haven't started an arm wrestle, but you've got him to a stage that he's going forward. Next thing you've got to look at is, how does he understand the legs? Who's taught him to respond well to the legs? I dare say no one's put a belly rope on him or tested that rib cage for, one, can I get into his head through his ribs and get him to think? Two, can I get him to make the right decisions through the feel of his rib cage? A lot of times, a lot of horses get ridden just people assume that, they've been trained from some alien out of space, that the horse has learnt to go forward to legs, and people just bump their rib and hope they're going to go. So putting a belly rope on him and pulling it forward, if he just thinks it's a girth and he just closes his eyes, you might bump it a couple of times and get him to go, listen to your ribs. And then in a neutral environment where you already got his thoughts fairly centered and he's not thinking out over the paddock somewhere, pick up a feel on the belly rope, get him to lead forward, get him to understand that feel means search. Watch those thoughts go forward, all those things. And then when you've got that happening from the belly rope, when you can let go of a strong thought in the reins, then when he's going in all directions in the arena, you slow him down and then you use your legs and say, speed up. If he blocks out your legs, sometimes I might back him and bump a little bit in my legs to say, wake up to my legs, loosen the reins, then say, now squeeze out to a squeeze. And but he needs to be educated how to understand how to go forward. You don't just bring bigger sticks, bigger spurs and just chase them, because you could end up, with bigger problems, especially if your daughter's going to ride the horse. The bigger you get and the tougher he gets, the more he could respond in a bigger way. So you want him to sort of start to be a lot softer and interested in going forward. But you still got to firm up a little bit and hang on sometimes in the reins to get him to change his thought. So one rein start, get him mobile in the reins. If he stops somewhere, back him up a step, steer him off in a new direction. Just be a parking officer. Anytime he tries to stop somewhere, pick up a rein till he's got perpetual motion. Then teach him how to respond to a belly rope so he can learn to respond to legs, and then go back into using legs once he's free and mobile in his mind. And you'll find that they'll get unstuck pretty easy. It takes a bit, but that once they get it, they get it. But the biggest thing is he's got strong thoughts. He's quite impulsive. He probably lacks caution in certain areas. All those things need to be addressed. And when those let go of a thought, take on a new thought, let go of a thought, take on a new thought. When you see him doing that all the time, and he's got a mobile brain, mobile mind, and he's not fixating on anything, then you find he's going to be a lot easier to manipulate under saddle.
And respect his space a lot bit more. Maybe he'll start to respect other people's.
Yeah. Monkey see, monkey do. They learn by example, not just by training.
And I guess once you start to look at things, and see how people are interacting with him, and maybe they've gone in on him assuming that he's going to be a bit bargy, and so they've been a bit bargy preempting it. I guess when you step back and start to see how people do interact, you might see things that you might go, oh yeah, maybe we can change that. Maybe let's just see how we go. I hope you can make a change on him, and good luck. Let us know how you go. You obviously focused on the one rein start mark, which is one of the techniques that you use quite a lot, different scenarios, and you found it to be very effective. Suzanne from the States, however, has 2 horses that she's been training over the winter, and she's now found that they do not want to have any forward thoughts at all when they're in the round yard or in the arena. So what she's been doing is training them with the one rein start, and it was very effective for 5 or 10 minutes, but then they quit moving. One of them will start pawing when he's fed up, and the mare will just put herself in a standby mode. And she's very hard to even get to walk after one rein start then. So they don't travel very far. They're not very happy about it. Now, out on the field, they're great, just not in that arena. She has done belly roping. She said it did help a bit. She didn't want to dull them to the legs when they didn't have the mood to go forward. So she did revert to that just to check to see how things were going on. She said that they're super happy to follow another human anywhere, but not a horse while they're under saddle. So there might be a bit of lack of confidence perhaps in their forward thoughts. They are great to pony off another horse, but she's just struggling with getting them to go forwards. I'm wondering if you had any advice for her.
Yeah, it's a common thing. Well, there's a few reasons. One reason it could be a cautious horse that is a bit scared of being a leader.
There's two of them though, isn't it?
So yeah, and they're both probably like that.
Interesting.
But sometimes we have a way of carrying our horses all the way through and not noticing it. And some people could call it micromanaging, but one of the areas I think we've got to be careful we're not carrying our horses is, when we lead our horses and stuff like that, where we're not getting them just focus on us and follow our ideas. And we're getting them to think away, process and search right from the get-go, not just sort of later on when we want to ride them. When they're distracted outside, much like the little pony, they got a forward thought, so they're kind of going somewhere, they're thinking somewhere, so they travel. But in the yards, they go, oh, well, what's the point, I suppose. So the other thing, I really feel that they're probably not quite sharp enough in the groundwork either, in the sense of, awareness, thinking, lifting, moving their body. I'd say they probably feel like, can they jog up really nice, and are they motivated? Are they have you got them thinking and traveling and searching? And if you put them in long range, are they mobile and loose, or are they sticky and kind of sleepy? And that's something I'd really look at. I think there could be a rhythm in the way you're working if they're both going in that same rut, that you might be sort of set in your little rhythm, and they got used to that rhythm, and they know how much pressure you apply, how quickly you apply pressure, how long you wait. They know your rhythm, and once they sort of get to knowing your rhythm, then they can start to know how long they've got to wait for the train, and when the train's going to wait for them, and things like that. And I don't want to be overcritical exactly what you're doing, but I'm just thinking I have a lot of people that come with the same questions to clinics, and I say, well, you might call that leading. I call that the horse being late, and I will get the horse more on time, more awake, blinking and thinking, get their awareness up. So then they're in that green zone that they need to be in to process pressure as well as environment. When they're sleepy, they go in a quiet environment. They sleep on pressure as well. So so what's happening is the environment's waking them up. That's not a great thing when the only thing that wakes your horses up is the environment that they're in. Right. They have to be woken up through our ideas and feel and guidance. And I think sometimes, like if you look at a lot of horses, I'll give an example. Someone might ride their horse in spurs, and the spur wakes the horse up, and then someone buys that horse, and the horse has been so woken up in spurs that it's frightened the legs. And then the next person spends 6 months riding the horse down in the reins till the reins put the horse to sleep. And then the horse is like asleep in the reins, but still frightened of the legs because they never addressed the leg problem. They just put the horse to sleep in the reins because the reins relaxed the horse and got it to let go of a thought. The reins aren't just there to get a horse to let go of a thought. They're there to get a horse to let go of a thought. So someone who rides a hot horse gets a horse to let go of a strong, worried thought. So they relax their horse in the reins and bring them back and say, come back and don't leave. But then you've got a dull horse. Well, the rein is getting the horse to stop sleeping and search and come out and search. So the reins do two different things for two different horses. So I think in your leading and the technique in your leading, are you getting your horse up? Is it searching? Are they really kind of floaty in their feet? Are they floating in the back up? Are they sticky? Are they picking up at the knees? All those things. Are you looking at all those? Are they blinking and their ears moving and stuff like that? So maybe you have to wake them up a little bit in the groundwork and sort of get them really thinking a little bit faster speed in the lead, back up a little faster, be a little creative in that. But then when you get them going, make sure they're searching and they're traveling. And then you get on that horse. Don't get on the quiet horse and try and motivate them just through one range starts. Now, if the leading has woken up your horse and it's kind of, yes, I can follow this, I can do that hindquarter yield, step underneath myself and I'm active and I'm thinking, then the picking up of the rein should wake up your horse, not dull your horse. So where I've seen the one rein starts not work on horses is they've been just, I'm turning around and I'm turning around and I'm going to give up. A one rein start says, pick yourself up, look over there, step in there. Where are we going? We're going in a new direction. Pick up your life, search. And so you maybe have to pick up the rein a bit more, maybe do some backups on your horses before you ride them and get them to pick up and really move backwards and make sure they're thinking in those reins and lifting and turning. Otherwise, it's just bend and wait and move a bit and bend and wait and move a bit and until they just, it almost massages them to sleep. And then you're back at, like you said, square one again, where they goes for about one rein start, works for 10 minutes, and then they finally stop again. And then you're thinking, well, do I go and get a stick? Well, I have had horses, and I'm not saying do this, but I have had horses that have been so dulled in the reins and stuff like that I've got a flag, and I'm not saying everybody get a flag because don't just get on your horse with a flag. I've got on after I've done my assessment of the horse, but it's just an example of horse psychology. As I've got up, I've shaken the flag on the back of the horse, and they've woken up, and I've said, now steer. And they go, okay, all right, I'll steer. It was more so getting them back in the green zone again, get them thinking.
So I guess as you're training, you've got to just be really conscious of what zone they are in. Where is their mind? I mean, yes, they might be thinking into the rein, and I guess you're watching for that, but is it an active mind or is it one that's actually kind of fairly, I don't know, dopey? Yeah, it's really interesting. Wow.
Just a quick example before we move on, just at the last clinic, there was a transformation in a horse's walk, and I said to the people at the clinic, I said, just look at that walk now. Look at that horse walk. And it had an amazing walk. Like it was underneath itself. Everything was right. Just to go to the start of the clinic, we were doing some leading lessons, and the horse was quite dull, quarter horse on its forehand. But if a particular horse left in the arena that was a bit sort of maybe get attached to it, suddenly just lose it. But it didn't look like a horse that was really shutting out. It just looked a bit dull. But then when it kind of destinated, it was very hard to get it back. So anyway, on one lesson she rode it and it just showed it was really tight and wanted to hump. So basically I said, no, take the saddle off. We're going to do something else. This horse is, you've ridden it for on and off for 6 years. It shouldn't be humpy and tight. So I put the belly rope on it and found probably 6 years of it not really understanding proper belly pressure, because out of context of the saddle, it was quite anxious. After doing the belly rope lesson, the horse came back into the green zone, had full awareness. Now, the first day, we'd get it to lift in the one rein start, lift up. We're on the ground, and we get it to lift the wither and walk with a soft, elevated catwalk where it had to pick itself up. But as soon as you let it out on a long rope, give it about a couple of feet of rope, but it just drop down and just go on its full and just sort of die again. Then you'd pick it up and it'd pick up its life, let the loose rein out, and then it'd die again. After belly roping it, she had a lesson of her holding the belly rope and guiding it with the lead rein and the belly rope, and she'd just get it to go forward, and this horse would walk in this amazing soft elevated walk and just keep going, no zoning out, no dropping on the forehand and sleeping and things like that. So basically the combination of going into an area of girthing where the horse should shut out girthing but was still worried about it, and leading got that horse to operate in the green zone. And I believe if a horse left, it didn't happen in that lesson, but if a horse left that arena at any time, we wouldn't have seen that horse destinate. It would have stayed there the whole time because it was in exactly the right headspace. And that was a combination of how we did our groundwork, the things that we assessed and addressed. Then if you rode that horse, I believe it wouldn't get stuck. And at the same clinic, there was another little horse, completely zombie zoned out to pressure, and he was only 6 and he'd only just really been started, and he's had 2 trainers try and start him and get him going. And once I got into his head, she had one ride on him, and she said she could kick him, she could put spurs on him, he'd just stop and wouldn't do anything, he just wouldn't go. Once we got him to stop blocking us out, she had one ride at the end of the clinic, and he just rode, he walked, trotted, and he followed. She didn't have to keep him going. He was going wherever she wanted, and he was in the right mindset. And so it wasn't just through one rein start techniques under saddle. What I'm saying, it was how we woke him up, how we got him aware on the ground, and the mindset he was in. So I knew, she said, oh, that's the best ride I've had in ages. And I said, I knew it was going to be a good ride. And she said, well, how did you know? I said, well, I could see how he was going to accept riding when you got on him, because of the way he was feeling, that I knew he wasn't going to block, and I knew he wasn't going to, stop at the gate or do this, because you could tell he was just in the right mindset and he wanted to be guided. So sorry to put those two stories in there, but they're just sort of examples that I want you to think about that really help you understand that a one range start is not just sit on them and do it. It actually, it's how we train them right through from the ground up till we get on them.
That's amazing. And we did like hearing those stories. I'm going to move on to the next question, which is from Fiona in Australia. And she has an off-the-track thoroughbred who is reluctant to leave his herd mates when they are going to go on a ride. So it might take her 10 to 15 minutes to walk about 100 metres. They do get there eventually, but now he's taken to backing up as a tactic and refusing to go forward. Once they get out, though, and they're out on the trail, there's a lot of confidence. They're pretty isolated where they are. They don't ride with anyone else, and he's nice and relaxed, so she's enjoying it. But she's just not sure what to do to get him to go out. And because he's doing so well out, and because they're quite isolated, she really doesn't want to have to push or persist too much. He's really quite big as well. So she'd like some tips on how she can get him to go forward, but obviously, not in a way that's going to cause any kind of a reaction, given that he's actually already starting to backing up.
Something to think about, and I think we'll direct you to another podcast, which is a fairly new podcast of a very similar subject, which which will pretty well. I won't talk about that because I'll get Jenny to direct you to that one. That was one about getting everything going right in the yards before you ride out, and knowing what you can do in the yards before you go out. And if you, by the sounds of it, if you're a bit worried about how big he is, how you don't want to poke the bear, well, you don't want to ride a bear outside and have something else poke the bear, and then the horse is still worried about you. So that talks a bit about doing things in the yards and what can you do and before you go out into to away from the horses. But just on the subject of sticky thoughts and him suddenly freeing up when you go out, it's almost like having, you drive past an ice cream shop with your kids or something like that, and you mentioned ice cream the day before and they remember it and they're like, ice cream shop, you said you were going to give us an ice cream, and it's a palaver. If you didn't drive past an ice cream shop, it wouldn't have been a problem. So what happens with a lot of horses, when the other horses are there, their safety's right there, their mind is on that. It's right there in front of them. That's where I want to be. I know I'm going to be scared out there and a bit nervous, and I just want to stay here. And if they've got strong thoughts, which a lot of those standies and ex-racers do, they're going to be hanging on to that. When you go out far enough, suddenly the ice cream shop disappears and they can't see it anymore. And they're like, oh, geez, there's lots of things out here to think about. I forgot about the ice cream shop, and away we go. And a lot of people, you'd be surprised how many people say the first 10 minutes is difficult, but then once we're out, or if I truck my horse somewhere else or trailer it somewhere else, float it somewhere else, it's fine. And it's like, well, because you haven't got the ice cream shop right there. But just be careful if an ice cream shop just pops up that you couldn't control. So when the ice cream shop's there, you couldn't get your horse to let go of a strong thought. He's backing up. He's getting really like, I want to go and get an ice cream. So it's this feeling of safety. He wants to be with the other horses, okay? So the fact that when the other horses are there, he won't let go of a strong thought means you have to really work on that in the environment close to where the other horses are. It could be through, like the last question, a compilation of groundwork and things like that, so ask a bit more of him, get him to let go, get the reins working good, the backup working good, be able to step up a little bit with him there. And then when he's letting go of the idea that those horses are there and he wants to be there, then you take him out so you don't have that 10 minutes of sort of fighting. don't try and just point and kick, because you will end up in a fight that sometimes he'll just start running backwards. So basically get your steering, your one rein start, the backup working good, and then start to sort of do transitions in the yards where he squeezes up, goes faster to your legs, but you're not taking him away from his mates. Don't make him think straight away you're taking him away from his mates. Just get him to do transitions in different directions and respond to you softly in the yards. By that time, hopefully he's forgot the idea that there was even an ice cream shop there, and then you open your gate and away you go. But at least by the time you get out over the back and beyond, he's a lot better at letting go of strong thoughts, and you can interrupt him a lot easier.
That's some good advice, because of course we don't want it to go wrong. Something could happen when you're out on trail and you need to be able to tap into him. So practice it in the yards makes a lot of sense. Now, the next question is from Sarah, and she has a horse that will go out on trail, no problem. But when she's out on trail, she gets to a point where a horse refuses to go forwards.
So we've had the one that sort of 10 minutes and then it finally goes out, then the one that goes further, and I can't do it anymore. Okay. So there are some horses that I've ridden that feel quite light, as in I've seen people ride a horse at a clinic and it looks like the horse is going exactly where they want. And I say, just drop the reins and then you'll see the horse gently drift back to the yards. And they were so light in the rein that the owner didn't even notice they were drifting, but the owner had one rein slightly differently balanced than the other one, and it was so light that they hardly even were aware of it. But as soon as they balanced the reins evenly, gave the horse space in the reins, the horse went, okay, I'm going where I want to go. But they were so light to sort of take out that they were obedient, but their mind hadn't changed. And they're the tough ones sometimes, because they're so obedient, but their thoughts are still at home. So you get further with them until the anxiety stacks. So when the horse's thoughts are at home, so you got the heavy horse, like we just talked about, that says, I don't want to leave. There's an ice cream shop there and I want an ice cream, or I want to stay with my mates where I feel safe. And the other one that says, I follow the rain, I follow the rain, I follow the rain, I follow the rain. I want to be home, I want to be home, I follow the rain, I want to be home, and they eventually get further out and they go, too much information out here, I'm really frightened. I've always wanted to be home, and then suddenly they stop and they freeze, they won't go any further.
Yeah, it does sound like a freeze. So she actually rides with her friends too, and her friends on this particular instance were just about 50 metres in front of her. And she could kick and nothing would happen. She would bend his snaky neck and nothing else would move. On that day, she had to get off him and walk him. Previously, she's done a hind quarter yield to get him to move, but then he just stands still. So yeah, it does sound like a freeze. So
basically, I'm not saying this is exactly, because a freeze is basically, a horse could be frozen with its thoughts behind it. It could be frozen with its thoughts in front of it. So that's the thing you've got to figure out. Sometimes they just get too much information, or like, as I said, the whole time they've been thinking home, so their mind's still at home, but they've got so far, and then it's too much out there, too much anxiety stacking, they freeze, and then you can't do anything with them. So basically, those horses, I think what you really got to look at is how well do they ride on a loose rein around home, like close to home. How well can you drop those reins, and do they go in every direction equally, thinking, ears flicking, processing their environment, and have they let go of home? Or are they light horses you can take out until they freeze? So basically, I go back to the one rein where it's more like a every direction's equal lesson, where you turn the horse, place the reins, see where they go. Turn the horse, place the reins, see where they go. And if they're always drifting back to one place, you know that they're sort of magneting. And you just sort of, when they drift back to that place, you just pick up a new direction until eventually they take on all new directions. And as I say, you're not far from home, you're close to home where they feel safe. So, and then they start to go in all directions equally. And then you find out the things that they're scared of. They back off that a bit. And then you might say, well, don't have to go towards that. We'll just steer away from that. And then they go, thanks for steering me away from that. And then you steer them back and say, we'll have another look at it, and just let you think about it. So then you're riding a little bit more, understanding their anxiety and what they're scared of, helping them show them that they're allowed to have a bit of space from that, and then come back and have another take. So then they get more the ability to process the environment that they're going into a bit more. So this is almost like treating them like a young horse again. So those horses that suddenly knuckle down and freeze, I'd treat them like a young horse in the sense of let go of home and have enough time to process the new environment until you're the one taking me out. But then I'd also have to go back and address how well do they respond to the legs in the safe environment? Can I get that acceleration, just like the last question and a question earlier on in the podcast, which was, on just a previous podcast, which was, what are you getting done in the yards? How well is your horse working in the yards before you take him out? So you have to add that in there as well, which is, the rein speeds, the responsiveness and all that sort of thing. And then you put those things together. You've helped on his confidence. You've found out that they can go in all directions equally. You start to realise that things scare him, so you give him a bit of time to process those things and take you through those things. And then soon enough, you won't get sort of restricted and constricted in freeze and then suddenly just knuckle down. Those things should hopefully help you out a little bit.
The next question is from Helen. Now, she's been riding her grey mare out on trail. She's come a long way and she's doing really well with her groundwork. She's found that she can be quite relaxed and quite brave and responsive, especially in the long reins. No real separation anxiety, but when she's out on trail, what's happening is that she's getting quite a long fixed gaze, or she's just wanting to go in a particular direction. So she might swing round to go where she wants to go, and she can be quite persistent at it. So Helen will ask her to go in a different direction, and which will work for a while, but then the strong gaze and the pull to go back to the original direction will come back in again, so it becomes a bit of a battle. She has tried different strategies, and Helen would just like to know if she's doing the right things. So she has tried sitting on her and letting her assess the situation to just check that it's okay. And she often let out a deep breath and then relax, and then she'll ask her forwards just to see where her thoughts are. She does sort of generally tend to keep going away from the herd in that scenario. Sometimes Helen has got her to do some retreating, some backing, some walking backwards and forwards so she can check things out on each eye, and using a direct rein to let go of a thought or a fixation. Now, she feels that last one, using the direct rein, is not working as well as she'd like it to. She feels that a horse might be obedient and following the feel, but when she releases and centres, then the mare will go right back to continue to turn and end up facing in the way she wants to go. So it doesn't seem to matter how many times she goes around and how many times she stopped and changed directions, it happens again. So any thoughts on that one, please?
Yeah, common thing I come across is people that have sort of started to be aware of getting a horse to follow a rein with its thoughts and letting go of a strong thought through following a rein, which is all good and well if it happens. But there's two things you've got to think about in horses is they have to let go of an emotion as well in a rein, especially if the horse has got strong thoughts and strong emotions. So an example is a horse is going, I'm worried, I'm thinking right. You pick up a left rein, it goes, I'm thinking left. You pick up a right rein and go, I'm thinking right, I'm going this way. But it's just kind of rushing and not, so those horses that hold the rein longer until they think into the direction of the rein, and then I'd slow them down and say, now soften and just think ahead just a couple of metres into the direction of this rein and process this softly. So they fully let go of a strong emotion and they go, I've just relaxed and I'm following that rein. So that's a hot, worried horse that's going left thought, right thought. They're everywhere, but they haven't changed their emotion. So that they've changed the direction of their thought, but they haven't changed their emotion. So some horses will click onto the idea of a rein with their thought, but as soon as you loosen it, they've still got a stronger desire to be back at a magnet. So they hook back onto the magnet where they're thinking as soon as you let off the rein. So you're correct on by trying to sort of say, hey, steer, let go of that. But I think somewhere along the way, you've got to figure out how you can keep your horse on the turn for longer, practice it in the yards, whatever, until you feel it use its hindquarter, soften its body, soften its mind and go, I'm stepping into here. Because I think your horse is getting kind of like a long thought turn, not a coming back into itself and turning here and letting go of all that big space around it, bringing it back into the small space around it in its mind, not the big space out there. So basically you've got to hold the rein long enough to get the horse out of that big long thought back into a short here thought, which is step into here softly, almost like it's going to step on an obstacle or, oh crikey, there's something on the ground. I don't want to put my foot on that. That's how close you want their thoughts to come back. And then you let them out. And if you feel them just leave and stretch out their thoughts again, you might pick up that rein again and say, no, I don't want you to leave. I want you to walk out quietly and with me, not just destinate every time you go out. And a lot of horses see that loose rein cue as a cue to leave. So it means you've got to maybe practice hanging in there longer, maybe get a better backup too. So when you do your open rein turns, if you've got a really good backup on, your horses can draw back. When you lean that rein back as you open the rein, you bring it back and open the rein, they'll kind of rock back, look and go step into here. So that means you're going to have more power in that rein to let go of the thought, but also let go of a strong worried emotion, get them to soften a little bit, use their body and have that short thought that's in your space, not out of your space out there somewhere. I think that's the most important thing. And just thinking about the way she gazes and looks off. I had a horse at a clinic some time ago, and I remember sort of explaining to people, see her gazing. I don't know what it was. It might have been Jenny on a walk or the cattle over the hill or something. And she's just like staring at them like that. I'm like, so of course I'd picked up the rein. I'm not going to let her stare at that and just let her process that. So I didn't let her process what she had to look at, what she thought she had to look at. So she was staring, and I just said, no, let go. When I saw her let go of it, and she softened, and she went blink, blink. Oh, yep, righto, I'm here. Then I said, now have another look, and I just pulled the rein and said, now look back over there. And she looked, she processed it, she blinked, and then she said, done that now, and came back. Now, when she was in that hyper-focused sort of gazy state, she wasn't processing anything correctly. So when I got her to let go and soften, she started to process a lot better. So, yeah, I think you just want to think about that as well.
And finally for today, Fern has a horse that goes out on a trail ride, very relaxed, no problem, but then out of nowhere, she'll have a hissy fit. Possibly there was something behind her, but she could not get this mare back to her. They ended up doing really fast, small circles, like a on-rein stop. She just kept hyper-focusing on something in the distance, so obviously really long thoughts. And Fern just stayed with her until she settled. But it was very sudden and very frightening. Fern was on her own, and so they just headed in the direction of home. But what could she have done? What should she be doing so that doesn't happen again?
There's obviously something like a build-up. She might be quiet, but a little bit complacent, not processing everything as she's going. Like the horse that I just mentioned earlier on in an arena, would be fairly quiet, a bit dull, and then suddenly a horse would leave, and then it was very hard to get it back, and they would hyper-focus off into the distance and things like that. So there could be something that's happening that she's kind of working under a certain state of awareness, but sort of just, going along and not really thinking, and then suddenly getting overwhelmed going, what was that? And waking up. So maybe there's going to be a bit more stimulation, a bit more interaction with her when you ride out. Don't go as far out, just kind of get her, a bit more awake, take her out, take her back, get her out, get her used to, thinking instead of going out like cautiously and quietly, and then suddenly she might be just quietly anxiety stacking, but you don't think anything's happening, and then all of a sudden something really spooks her. So I'd get her in the green zone. She might be just in a bit of a just a bit of a humpy sort of walking along, quiet zone, not really thinking about much, and then gets a surprise. So sort of wake her up a little bit more in the groundwork, in the ridden when you're safe, and then take her out, have her a bit more alert, thinking, responding back to you a bit sooner, and also increase the rein speeds, things like that, so she knows to come on board a lot quicker.
And tap into her, I suppose, when they're actually riding, just to test.
I think Carrie Whitney used to call about like a little birdie flying over, and you just sort of see if that little birdie is available. And if you see that little bird fly coop or start to, you just pick up a rein and get that little bird to come back, and that's their thoughts, just to make sure they're there and available, and you can redirect them at any time.
Fantastic. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Mark. That was a wealth of information. I really hope that sheds some light for all of you out there, out on trails. Stay safe, and we look forward to answering more questions again soon.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, everybody.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please like it, share it, or send us a comment. It all helps in reaching new ears and helping more horses. And if making a change in your horse appeals to you, Mark offers his direct support and a diverse learning platform. Head to marklangley.com.au and grab your 7-day free trial.